Welcome to Woman Talk, where we keep it real, real. My name is Tara. Please join me and my girls, Didi and Promessa, as we have difficult and informative conversations. Our goal is to uplift and encourage you. Please go with us on this journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Woman Talk. I'm Tara, and I'm here with my good friends, Didi and Promise, and they'll say a little bit about themselves when their turn comes around. But right now, I'm talking about me and who I am. I think the main thing that I want everybody to know about me is I'm just me. I'm real. I plan on keeping it real throughout this whole process. I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, I'm a professional. I actually am a therapist, but we're not going to talk a whole lot of mental health stuff, I hope, unless it's necessary. And that's a little bit about me. Okay, Dee, take it away.
Yes, and my name is Didi, and I have worked in the court field for over what now 20 years. I have a nonprofit. I just love these girls. I am a grandmother. I have four beautiful children, and I'm just excited about this process. I definitely am keeping it real. I'm the one that you don't put on speaker, so this will be entertaining and fun.
Mhm, mhm. Amen. And I am promesa or promise, depending on the day or the topic or what we're talking about. I'm starting a nonprofit as well. And we worked together for many, many years over 12, 13, 14 years. And um, I'm very transparent about where I've come from and where I'm going. And this group of girls is just a group that when you have that friendship, even though they've said we have not always agreed, but when you have a friendship like this, it doesn't matter if we didn't talk for 6 months. When we pick up the phone, it's like we've still talked every day. So we're here to just encourage one another, to uplift each other, to empower other women. Not that we're discouraging, any type of relationship with men, but this is directed towards women. So we're just here to uplift everybody and encourage one another. And hopefully you guys all have a friendship as we do. So as Tara said, we met at work through our employer, and the topic of today will be about relationships, because it's really how we met, our relationships together between us three, our relationships with our family, with our loved ones, whether we had a spouse at the time or didn't have a spouse at the time. And so today we're really just going to talk about that one word, relationships. And one word can really flow into so many different things, so many different topics. So here we're just going to talk about how this came about, our relationships again at work and through our families. And hopefully y'all will be blessed and receive something.
When I met both of these ladies, I was single again. We'll get back into what the again means later. But when I met Promise, I don't think I had even met my husband that I'm married to now. Have I? Had I? I don't think
Girl,
so.
that was so long ago.
We don't-
No,
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 right?
not
No.
at that time. You
Okay.
had not met him yet.
So I was single. And then when I met Didi,
Single, like with a
I was,
capital S.
yes, I was single and dating. And then when I met Didi, I was engaged
Mhm.
to my husband that I'm married to now.
And y'all have been married how many years?
We have now been married for 16 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's awesome. That is
Right.
awesome. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, Promise was married and Didi was in a it is complicated.
It wasn't complicated. I was with my baby daddy. I had just been in a long-term relationship with my kid's father.
But when you say long term, please say how many years so people know what long term means.
At that time, so we weren't married at that time. We probably had been together for 10. 12 years?
So in total though, you guys have been together, well, since Denitra.
Over 30 years. Mhm.
Yes. That's beautiful. Mhm.
Yes.
Well, if I add up all my marriages together, I've been married about 29 years too.
Oh, that's right. I know that's right. Add them up.
Oh,
Mhm.
so, okay.
But I think the road for us even getting to our marriages, we had so many conversations about the men that we were dating and the relationships that we had been in. And sometimes as a woman, we see this knight in shining armor and our friends see them really for who they really are. And even our family members see them for who they really are. And these red flags are going up and we don't see the red flags. So I think it's very important when you're in a relationship and you're dating somebody and your friends are saying these things, friends that love you, like truly are there for you. Like, that's my girl, like for real. If my girl tells me something about this dude I'm talking to, then I need to really listen to that and receive it, especially, your close family member. I'm not talking about friends that you call your friends, but you feel like there's some sort of jealousy in there somewhere. But my girls have told me things about, I'll say a specific person I was dating, back in the day where I knew deep down, he ain't no good for me. He ain't no good for me. He ain't no good for anybody else. He still ain't. Let's just say sometimes it takes people a little bit longer to change than others. But they told me, a lot of things. And I really at that point didn't want to receive it. I was at that time, at this specific time when I wasn't married, I was in a very, very dark place in my life. And they stood there for me, stood there by me. So I think it's very important when we see these red flags go up to receive what our friends and our family are saying to us about these relationships.
And I think the thing, Promise, to think about is not so much that we saw something about the person, but we see you and then we see a change.
Yeah.
And if we can say that change in you is directly contributed from that relationship and that change is not positive, that change is negative, then that's when we would say something.
And then not to mention, when you're friends with someone, and this is the other thing, a lot of times you hear people saying, well, my friend, they did this or that, or they changed, so I don't even talk to them anymore. And so you can't even be like that. You still have to embrace that person. I know we've all had conversations and stuff. I know, that particular relationship that you were in, we like, girl, what do you think? Like, what are you thinking on some stuff? But we still loved you. And I know that, we still loved you. And I mean, we all have to go through stuff. I mean, we all do go through stuff, but when you sincerely love people, you have their back while they're going through it. You don't have to, you don't have to hammer it in their head. You can just tell them, hey, this isn't your relationship is, very disruptive. It's stuff you need to, make changes on, and then, but still love on them. And I think that's what we still did with, you. And that's what we all have done with each other when we went through different things in our relationships, is that they were there for each other. We all spoke our mind.
For sure.
At the same time, it was just all real love. It was just all. It was just,
And even if we disagree, because I know that what was interesting, many people, because my husband was from the town that we lived in and I wasn't. So people knew him, but they thought they knew me. I'll say it like that. And if for the people who really did not know me, they thought, this is like, what is this? What is this match? This is not a good match. That's what people were thinking. Yeah. And so people would come and say things to me. I know they thought they were cute, but I'm like, it never occurred to me to say, but y'all don't know me. And you all don't know why I said with him, whatever the issues were at the time. And so it was like, okay. And I didn't know how to express, I don't want to say irritation. I know one person got totally never invited to my wedding, period. That's just what happened with that. and it wasn't one of these people on this call, but it just was like, no, but I didn't know how to communicate. Number one, mind your business. I didn't know how to communicate that at that time. And number two, I didn't feel like I owe anybody an explanation as to why we fit together.
Mhm.
But standing the test of time kind of shows that something was right in
Mhm.
that, in that, in our situation. And that's not gonna say we didn't have bumps, because you guys know I left at one point. I think what was I gone for like 3 months, something like that.
Yeah.
But it was and that was more like, okay, that's growing pains in the
Mhm.
process. So
Mhm.
then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, what do you
Yeah.
do? And how much?
And I think what Deandra said too about when somebody's in a relationship and they start to change, that was very powerful, because a lot of times we can get into relationships with our significant others, and we start to change. And that was one thing that I realized with this relationship, that I really, really started to change. And with Tara, in her relationship, when she started dating her husband, we all watched the transformation of her changing, but her changing like from the single lifestyle to like, I'm about to settle down, y'all, like for real, settle down with this dude. Like, I'm about to, like, she was talking about, if you love me, you better put a ring on it, and we wanted to see the rock, we were waiting, and rock is what he put on her finger, but when you're going through that relationship, it's like, really, really, if there's going to be a transformation and a change, let it be positive, let it be uplifting. So if that person is not there helping you to change for, be a better woman and be a better person, then really take a step back and look at that relationship. He continued to, she continued to get her education. She continued to, work and get her education, and, I'll let her share on her walk with that. But some men, some relationships, they don't want you to get to that next level, or they'll see a strong woman and it's something that certain men don't want. So just to look at that type of relationship, if they're changing you or allowing you to change, that it be, to uplift you, to take you to the next level. Mm-hmm.
Tara, I want to touch on something you said, and I don't think it was about people not knowing you, because you had changed. They didn't know the old you on what would lead
Right.
you to date who you dated, because you had
Yes.
changed, so you had already evolved. But the thing was, and this is why I know we're not doing a spiritual show, but this is why when God had put something on you,
Mhm.
and you said that, I remember we had so many conversations about that, and it wasn't about where your husband was, it was about where he was going.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so I remember us having a lot of conversations about that, and you seen that, like you stood fast. So I wouldn't say people didn't know you, because we knew you. Is that that the vision that God has shown you, that's why you always stand what God showed you. God might not have showed me the same thing as he showed you.
Right.
God showed all of us something different. So it's just nice to see that you stood there and you didn't listen to other people. And you didn't, you did what you knew was best for you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm happy about that, because that actually would kind of lead to even me. So but what basically me and my husband is that, because we had been together for so long and we weren't married. And so everybody was like, you got to get married. You got to get married. You got to get married. You've been with him. You've had 3 children for him. Like, he has no reason to get married. But people never thought about the fact of how young we were. We're 19 and 20 years old. When you're 19 and 20, things don't look the same. You still have to go through, the bumps and the bruises. I'm gonna be honest with you. If we probably got married, we probably wouldn't have made it. And I think some people don't think about that. If we would have got married when we were young and had to go through those bumps and bruises that we went through, we probably wouldn't have made it. I really don't think that we would have made it. I think that because we weren't married, I think because we were able to take time away from each other and time outs at times to allow people to grow and stuff. I think that's really what helped us. And then when we got married, then, I tell people all the time, he's an amazing guy. He really is. He's an amazing guy, and he's good to me. And so sometimes you have to do things, because we have to remember everybody that I grew up with, my grandparents being married for 50 and 60 years, aunts, and uncles being married for 50 and 60 years. Like when you're come through and that's what you see as marriage, that is what you want. You know what I'm saying? That's what you want, to have that perfect life. But then if your mate comes up and that's not what they see, then for you both have to meet up and get to that point. And that was like really our biggest thing, is that I came from it. So I probably wanted it more than him, because he didn't come from it. His drive for that wasn't as strong as mine. Not to mention and grow a little slower.
When Deandra talks about her husband being an amazing guy, he really is. I mean, I can't say that I know him well, but what I do know of him, he's always been a great guy, a great father, a great husband, good to his boys, his kids, and she also, when you were saying about the bumps and the bruises, like that's real. So as you were saying that, it came to me of how we got our logo. Sometimes as we're going through these relationships, it's like our mouths, our lips are sealed, and not just sealed, they're like zipped, they're closed. We cannot talk about, as you were saying in your relationship, you guys went through these bumps and bruises, but she doesn't mean it in the physical. I mean, that I have ever known, he has never laid a hand on her. And there was times I wanted to put my hands on her. I'm like, look, girl, like for real. I mean, you my girl, but I'm about ready to like,
real.
Girl.
Bro,
you just walk away because we at work.
Right. I'm gonna get at you at 5 o'clock. Okay, I'll see you outside, but in a good way, because we had that relationship where we could really just talk and be free and give each other our opinions on things. But she is very outspoken. Anyone who knows
That's
her,
what you call that?
she ain't got no filter, y'all. We had to have a talk with her before we started recording about having some sort of filter on here. So she ain't got no filter. So her husband is the most laid back dude I have ever met. I mean, he's the one who'll be there chilling while she going off. I'm like, so when there is that balance in that relationship, people say opposites attract, and how they get together and how they, they really do. When there's that opposite attract, really just, it brings so much balance to that relationship. So that's really how we came to the logo of the bumps and the bruises and these things that are happening in our life. And maybe, we're going through domestic violence, or maybe we're being, abused emotionally, or all these things. And we feel like we ain't got nobody to talk to. We can't talk about what we're going through. We can't really say, there was a time in my life where I was married for about, almost, 8-9 years. And I had left my husband, and nobody knew, like none of my girls, not even these girls who are my girls. So I suffered in silence. You suffer in silence. And one day, I broke down, and they're like, girl, what's wrong with you? And they knew I was kind of going through something, but I was being just so quiet and distant that finally I just broke down, and I was like, you know what? I moved out, I left my husband, and they're like in shock. And so I just really want to, touch base on that, to not suffer in silence, And in our logo, you see where they're unzipping, that zipper to be free in discussing things. And, Tara was talking about, she's a therapist, the mental health, part of it. There's so much going on sometimes, even if we don't have mental health issues per se, or ever been diagnosed, when we're going through relationships, sometimes we fall in a deep depression, or, some sort of Well, Tara, you can share more on that, but the things that we go through in these relationships can be so deep and so profound where we feel like we can't talk about it. And so we're really here just to really encourage women to talk about it, to let it out, to release that with somebody, you know, whether it be a therapist or, you know, a pastor, but just honestly, you ain't got it. Don't suffer in silence.
Or a friend. It's just, that's one of the reasons it's great to share your story. When I share my story sometimes with young women, my husband's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, relive, you know, the person I used to be. I've made changes. And I'm like, listen, it's not even about you. It's not anything negative about you or anything. It is to help someone else. That's it's, you know, basically is to help them. And so I always let them know, I'm like, listen, you share your story to help somebody. It's your testimony. That's why you do that. Nothing to be ashamed of.
And I, when we think about relationships, and I wish somebody had told me this a long time ago, but they didn't. But when we think about relationships, I always tell young women, when you are dating, don't look for someone who can only deal with you where you are right now. They need to be able to deal with you where God is taking you. They need to be able to deal with you where God is taking you.
Yes.
And that's different.
Yes.
And that might require together growth or whatever it is, but that is very essential because none of us, especially us, even though, look, we're going to get more into it, but even though David is my third husband, I was still really young when I got married. I was still young by what I would consider to be today's standards because I was divorced twice before my 29th birthday. So it's like when you think about that in the grand scheme of it, and now all of us have kids who are older than that. So when you think, it's like, wow, I can't imagine my 29-year-old married at all at this point.
Mine is.
Oh yeah, that's true. You've
been married like 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. He got married young. But just, it's like, man, you know, so that's something to really think about. And I know that I never, when I met my husband, I didn't even know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like, when you think about it, I wasn't a therapist when we met. I didn't go back to school until after we got married. So, and it was like knowing he was a person, and when it was like, when I went to him and was like, I really want to go back to school, he was like, let's do it. What I got to do? And I tell people all the time, my kids didn't eat hot dogs until I went back to college. Because my husband, who, you know, I like to cook. That's what I do. I'm in the kitchen, I'm cooking a lot. But he did what he could.
And I love it when she cooks.
You know, so that's when, but he got that done. And I am so appreciative to this day. I remember when I was on the bus, after I graduated with my master's degree, you know, we had to shuttle bus to take us back to our car. And people were like, congratulations, congratulations. And I remember one person said, congratulations to me. And he said, thank you. And then I thought about it. And it was our degree. Because if he had not been present to do the things that he did, I wouldn't have been able to do school. Not like how I had to do school, practicum, internship, working full time. I would not have been able to do that. So it's like when you're thinking of people that you have, that support is essential. Does that make them perfect? No, we still have hills and valleys and bumps and mountains and all of that. But when you look at the core of it, it was what it needed to be and how it needed to be. And even though he can get on my nerves and he know it, I would rather be with him than without it.
Absolutely. That's how I feel. Even with the bumps and bruises, it has been all worth it. It has for the end results and when you have growth. Growth is everything. Growth is everything on both ends, but growth is just amazing.
So Promessa, tell a little bit about your story.
Well, actually, while you were talking and Deandra was talking about, her marriage and things like that, I was remembering when Deandra got married and we were all, sitting at the table and the cutest little thing happened. I don't know if you guys remember, but at that time, I was there with my husband and Tara talked about her marriage now. So she's in her third marriage. And at this time, at Deandra's wedding, I was in my first marriage. So when we were at her wedding, do you guys remember my husband at the time?
I remember.
Yes. So my husband at the time, there was these little like gifts that, at each table for you to take home, or like little decorations, and it was for each person there, to take home from the wedding and things like that. Well, it was like the little kind of zip ties, kind of like on like bread, but they were all silver and pretty, and well, he had taken that and made this little heart shape kind of thing design and gave it to me. And everybody at the table was like, oh, that's so beautiful, and and I received it. We're just messing around, playing around, talking at the table, and he gave that to me. Well, I can't remember how long after that. This is the same divorce that I went through, where I was so broken. I didn't share with them, because we had that beautiful marriage, that great family. I had a child prior to him. I was very, very young. I was 15 years old when I had my first son. And then I met my husband and married him when I was 21, and then we had 2 children. So we had that family that everybody looked at, and just bought a house and things like that. And so after I left and the divorce was, becoming final, and I had moved out, and I started seeing things happening in my house, things being moved, things being, I'm a very OCD. I got some OCD. I'm trying to, release that, like, let it go. I don't have to be. I used to go in Tara's office and fix every piece of paper, every pencil, like clean off her desk. And she doesn't know. She's like, promises in my office. I was always there to, organize, very, those traits. But so one time I came home, and this is the time when we were already divorced. And I walked in my door, and, sometimes you feel like somebody is in your house, or somebody has been in your house. And there are times for me, I know I can speak, I can only speak about my situations and the things I've gone through, but sometimes it's like you're going crazy, but you're really not. I know that I had left certain things in different places, and I'd come home and they'd be moved in a totally different spot, or just moved over. And one time I came home and I literally felt as if somebody was in my house. Well, I walked in, and that cute little heart thing that he had given me was placed right on my kitchen counter, just there. And I just kind of stopped, and I didn't know whether to turn around. I didn't know whether to move. But sometimes you're going through some things, and that manipulation of you trying to second guess yourself is something to really talk about with other women, with friends, because you need to talk those things out. And I remember being very afraid after that, like somebody's getting in my house, somebody's coming in my house. And I had shared it with them. And for many, many years. So, there are people that, stalking is real. Stalking is real. People coming in your house, it's real. I'm funny. Like I just said, I'm funny about my house. And so I always kept the toilet lid down, partly because my son had a dog who used to, like to drink out the toilet. But I came home one day and the toilet seat was up. I come around the corner and the toilet seat's up. My kids were not there and nobody had been there. And so when you're going through a relationship where you feel like you're being stalked, or you feel something is going on, it's very, very important to talk to people about that, because people need to know when things like that are happening, that it's real. had that not ever happened, or I had not shared that with them, God forbid something would have happened to me, nobody would know unless you share that. So.
Or the other thing is just thinking you're crazy. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I know. And then that, oh, nobody's going to believe me thing.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't know until you say something.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's like, what we need to do? Do we need to come to the, like, what, how we need to do this?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. Yeah.
because, hey, but that's really what it was. And it was like, no, you're not crazy. You know how you leave your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know that. And I remember us having several conversations like that.
Mm-hmm.
And back in them days, getting cameras and stuff wasn't big. So that's
Right.
the first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
Get a camera. But
Yeah.
it's like all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's crazy. I think about it. Wow, we have really gone through some stuff. Even when you think about family relationships, because during these times, at that time, my mom was still living. She's now since passed away, but she was living in a whole nother town. You guys watched me go through that. The issues with even dealing with family when you have like a parent who is ill. And you guys know my mom suffered from mental health issues. So it was like just going through that and wondering what you should share, if you can share, in a place where, in a work environment where you really don't feel all that safe with your personal stuff, because you don't know what somebody might take, might take it and do something with it that wasn't quite positive. But it's like, okay, just being there. I remember, wow, my dad passed away while I was working there. Like, so it's just so many things that happen. And I remember being off, and because, we work with people who weren't maybe the most sensitive to our struggles, were just like, oh, okay, well, here we go, just the lack of understanding. So having a group of women around that you could be like, look, this is really what's going on right now. So I'm gonna be in here and I'm gonna have this door closed. Just so you know, if you see me do that, this is what's going on. That was key during some of those times. Because I just thought about that. It was a lot.
And then you got to think, and I'm thinking about all of you ladies showed up when my grandfather passed away. And you knew, and you know how much he meant to me. He was very important to me. And just to have your friends show up to, even if you don't get a chance to just hug them, I know that I got to glance and look over at you and I'm like, okay, they're here. And it's always been a thing with us is when we sit down and we talk and we share our story, you never just heard it anywhere else. You wouldn't hear it somewhere else. Like when somebody else came and said something to you, you're like, oh, how did you find that out? Whenever we talked, it was like we knew we could confide in each other. I always love that. I love that. You don't get too many of those.
And I think too, Deandra, what you're saying, well, first, we really haven't said where we worked at. And I don't think I don't even know if we're gonna say, but it had to do, we worked in a department that had to do with families. And it was very, very stressful, very stressful. So not only did we deal with the situations going on with the families that we worked with, we had these families, going off on us sometimes, cussing us out, here we're trying to help, then on top of that, then we have, other, employees or, people that we work with that we may have clashed with and just didn't get along with, or maybe there was, some upper management that, didn't know we see eye to eye. So not only do we have our personal lives that we had to, things going through, we worked in a department that was very stressful with people and families who had their own hardships that they were going through. And when Deandra says, you know, how we were there at her grandfather's funeral, that in itself, for us to go at that time, there was an issue in our department because we all were gone and we all had to take time off. And I'm like, wait, hold up. It's not like we're going shopping, you know? So when you have those friends, like she said, and we really didn't even get a chance to really talk to her or hug her or really that day because there was just so many people. But the thing I want to say is that to be that friend and to have those friends and know just by a look, just by your presence, to be there and be that blessing, be that friend, you know, be that person. And if you can't be because you're so hurt and you need healing and you have these wounds and these things that you're going through, then find those people, find that friend that is true, that they're genuine, that they're sincere. And then at some point you'll be able to be there for them, because there have been times where I couldn't be a friend to them in a way I wanted to be because of something I was going through, but they were that friend to me.
Like turning 30.
Huh?
They're like turning 30.
All right, y'all, we all go through some things when we turn a certain age, you know, but be that friend sometimes when it's just far away, to know that they're there. And like Tara said, when I turned 30, it was a hot mess. You know, it was a hot mess. I turned 30. I had just gotten divorced. I hadn't done a single life since, you know, before I turned 21, you know, so I just got divorced, had 3 kids. I was in that point where I'm like, you know, who's going to want a 30-year-old divorced woman with 3 kids and, you know, blah. It was horrible. And these girls, they didn't know whether to look at me or run or.
Couldn't even say the word birthday.
Couldn't say birthday. Didn't know if to plan something or what. But that's the other thing though, is that I think with all of us, we had to learn though different things of what people may be going through, our different personalities, our past, represents who we are, most of the time, the person that you become. Not to say that you can't become a good person, but how you are. Like, remember that time, Tara, you were so mad at me, girl, when I was,
Wait, which time?
This time, I think I was joking, or Tara was like mad, like, you take something serious, and then I think I said something like, that I laughed to keep from crying or something to her.
Oh yeah, because Didi said something to me.
And then y'all got to get me in it. I'm like, I don't know.
I'll be that man. I was like, I'm gonna punch her in the throat or I'm gonna walk away. And we got bills to pay, so I can't punch her in the throat. So let me just walk away. And then I'm always the one who will go back later after I calm down and talk. And I was like, look, you can't always be joking about everything. Everything ain't funny, Didi. And then she said, have you ever thought, and I was like, she's trying to make me feel bad. Have you ever thought that sometimes I'm laughing to keep from crying?
Wow, yeah.
So then I was like, she just said that to make me feel bad, but okay, whatever. I'm going back to my office and slam my door.
Tara done beat on me so bad anyway. She dragged me through the hallway at work one time.
Do not be saying, okay.
Oh gosh, long time. Boy, I love
maturity. That's why this is not girl talk. This is woman talk. Yeah, when I was a girl, yes, I would drag you. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm a woman. You have to do a lot to get dragged. That don't mean you won't get dragged. Right. But I think about I have more to lose. I have a license.
I was trying to stop you. I was trying to stop you from going to check somebody, and she was dragging me. I'm going on.
I know. So it's different now.
Yes, I mean, but that's a thing, growth. I mean, growth, like me, I still speak my mind, but it's times when I hold it, trust and believe I do.
When?
That is not true. Do not.
No, it is. like you guys, I can say stuff too, and it can, you know, and we're laughing and talking and stuff. But for real, when I'm talking to other people, the things that come across my mind, I can't say everything. I really can't.
Anyway.
I'm not gonna fool with you guys.
So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
on that note, we we're just gonna begin to break it down. But what I would hope that we can encourage people to do as you see this, ask us questions, because we're just gonna be talking from our heart. We're not scripted, as you can tell. We're gonna be talking about whatever it is that comes to mind for the most part. So we hope the gist of what you guys got from this whole conversation was relationships in all forms.
Yes.
If you have questions, thoughts, comments, whatever, just let us know. And we will do our best. All of us will be reading comments, looking at it, and doing our best to respond.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us for Woman Talk, and we will see you next time.
We would just like to invite you in on our podcast where we're going to talk about some things. So get your tissues ready. It's going to be deep, but it's going to be real. So we invite you to just sit in with us and share our experiences, share your experiences with us, and we'll share ours with you.